Going live. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Viz Review for week 39. It's going to be special and here we are. Hi Seth, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great as well and I love your t-shirts.
Thank you. From Women Deliver last year.
Oh
I think it was
nice.
last
So
year.
is this something people can order if they want to be showing their support?
We should do t-shirts. That's a really good idea. No, at this stage, this is from a big women's conference that we go to every 2 years. But maybe we'll get some merch up and put it online so people can support and
Let's do
kind of
that.
show the pride of the project.
I think that would be nice and something people can get behind. So hello everyone, I'm just checking the comments. I've got a few screens set up here, so looks like we've got a few people tuned in, and maybe we'll do some very brief introductions for those of you who have not participated in Viz Review before or who just haven't really seen our faces before. So my name is Eva Murray. I'm a tech evangelist for Exasol. I'm based here in London and I run Makeover Monday, and I have the pleasure to be joined today by my good friend Seth Cochran from Fistula.
Hello. I'm Seth Cochran, the founder and CEO of Operation Fistula, former sort of data scientist, now social entrepreneur. We're putting all our energy into fighting injustice and trying to bring equity to the world, particularly around gender equity. So really psyched to be here with you, Eva, and with all the volunteers who do such awesome work with these data sets that we put out. And we're getting so much inspiration. We're thinking about like what comes next, like what's going to be our big step as we transition through the first year of this into the next big picture. So super excited to be here.
Absolutely. And this has been going quite well, this initiative, I think, kicking off in March. Well, was it? Yeah, in March for International Women's Day, and we've moved along every month ever since. So good to have you here. And this week we're looking at child marriage. So I'm going to change over to the data set. But I thought before we dive into the makeovers people have created, I'll share on my screen the original Viz from your team. And maybe you could say a couple of sentences about this topic and why it was chosen and kind of, what it means.
Absolutely. Well, I'll just jump right in on that because child marriage is like it's a terrible thing. It really is a terrible thing, and it ends up being like a really big contributor to fistula, mostly because a girl's development gets absolutely interrupted when she is married too young, and particularly when she has a baby too young. So we've seen a lot in our fistula work of girls having their first pregnancy, really young. So we've seen, like, for example, in a lot of our work years past, like about 70% of women who we treat have had their first pregnancy as teenagers, and of that population of women, like 2 in 3, so around 65%, have had it within the first 3 years of getting their first period. Okay, so we know that gynecological maturity happens 3 years after the first menstruation that a girl has. So she might be hormonally able to have a baby, but she's not physically mature enough to do that. And when that happens, it means she's just not, her birth canal is not advanced enough. So you have like the cephalopelvic disproportion. The baby gets stuck, and then it results in that fistula happening. So, and of course, the child marriage is significantly contributing to early pregnancy, though they are not completely dependent on each other. Sometimes girls are getting pregnant without being married. So. But what we do know is that in places where the systems allow or even motivate families to marry their girls off young, we know those places are also places where fistula tends to be highly prevalent. And we think that because there's just a great deal of gender inequality in these places. So we took this data set, was really, it's from UNICEF, and it's pretty high level, and we have like great partners who work on this, like Girls Not Brides, and what we wanted to do was put something together that just introduced the the topic. And this data set, it's not as like multifaceted as some of the other stuff we put out, but it does give you a picture of what's happening around the world in different countries. And one thing that's particularly interesting is that this also has boys. So how many boys were married before they're 18. So it'd be really interesting to see all of the different the different submissions. I mean, we've gone through it and it looks like there's some pretty interesting stuff. So we're pretty excited.
Absolutely, and thanks for that introduction. Now I have to admit that due to my travels and holiday, I haven't actually done my Makeover Monday yet. I've kind of skimmed through the text, but for those who have questions or are not quite sure, there's two resources. Firstly, during this YouTube live webinar, we have people from Seth's team on this live chat. So please, if you have any questions, fire them in the live chat, and Helen will likely tackle them and give you the answers, and we can also try and pick them up on our chat. But also on data.world, you probably saw the data, you saw the images. This time around, we made sure to provide the logos, etc., for you to include in your vizzes. But also there's two PDFs, and one is a description of child marriage and a bit more about the theme, but also where the data came from. And then a second document is the data dictionary that explains the different fields in the data set. So these are always provided with the topics, and I hope you will find that useful and it has answered your questions. So shall we dive into our collection of vizzes?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, because we got really good feedback last time about having like a session where we could explain some more context about the topic. And we've just been a bit buried this week and prior to the submission, so we weren't able to do that this week, but we really did hear everyone, and we absolutely do intend to do that going forward. So hang in there with us while we get ourselves organized, and that way we can give you even more color on some of these data sets, which would of course help you tell the stories even better.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. I'm also sometimes the bottleneck, and I was away and just not really in a setup where I could easily do these live sessions or video recordings.
I would say you are like never the bottleneck, and mostly the opposite of a bottleneck, whatever that is. You're getting things done all the time. Like, you make it easy.
I try. So I have put together this collection from the Viz Review hashtag, trying to get as many varied vizzes as possible onto our list. And I suggest we start at the bottom. And the first one is from Priyanka, and she has got... I notice more and more that people, for these Viz 5 topics, they really put a lot of effort in, and they create this super comprehensive visualizations. And this is a long format layout where... Oh no, this one has different pages. Okay, so let me put this into full screen mode for everyone to see. And... at least I thought there was multiple pages. Let's see. So, child marriage, a sin. What is it? Okay, so there's a definition. The first thing I notice here is that the sentence seems unfinished, so there's no full stop or double quotation marks to close this quote. So that's one thing I would suggest to add. So then we have, how bad is the situation? And with a question like that, I expect to find the answer pretty much immediately. But what I do see is lots of yellow dots, but it doesn't really jump out to me that, okay, is this a bad thing or a good thing? Because also yellow to me doesn't suggest something really bad. Like, I mean, that's a personal opinion, I suppose, but from the question of how bad is the situation, I don't immediately see whether the situation is actually bad and how bad it is. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, the first thing that jumped out to me when I opened this was a sin. Just saying, like maybe it was just the real estate of the page, but it was like, boom, right there, which I think is interesting. And when you have a lot of open space like that, and you have something that's in the upper left of a screen in English, at least, that's like your eyes always go to that spot. So remember that as a device, the white space does push the eye to that point in the upper left. Oh yeah, how did you do that? Is that the FAQ? Okay.
Yeah. If I click on the FAQ, it pops
that
up.
I didn't see. So this is interesting. This like 2-page kind of design. I don't think I've seen that too often. But going back to the dots, one of the things I was thinking, just as I looked at this, is you have these kind of these three clusters. One is women who were married before 18, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have the next one is women who were married, before 15, right? So this is like a subset of the former. And then you have men who are married before the age of 18. So I think I'd love to hear what you think about this, Eva, but I think in terms of like showing a direct difference, I think it's more powerful to put the apples against the apples, right? So like women before the age of 18, men before the age of 18, you can see a totally different spread.
Yeah.
And then the under 15, I mean, that when you put the under 15 next to the under 18, like under 15 girls with under 18 boys, it looks like somehow they're like the same, but there's a dimensionality of difference there. So I think if you didn't have all three of them, I'm not sure what the third one shows. Maybe I would break out the under 15s into its own little, separated thing, and then just put the women compared to the men at 18. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of rambling. I'm maybe not making sense, but do you understand what I'm saying, Eva?
I do, yes. And yeah, for me, because to be honest, for me, before the age of 15, that's the really bad one. I mean, the other one is also bad because they're also still minors, but under 15, that's really what I would say is, a small child or a child. So that should, in my opinion, have a lot more prominence than it currently does. Like you said, it kind of gets a bit lost because there doesn't seem to be this strong difference because it's all pretty lengthy descriptions for each of the rows. But before the age of 15 or before the age of 18, that's really the punchy bit, and that kind of gets a bit missed.
Yeah, and so maybe if you brought that first, and then below that, you kind of created some visual space, and then you put direct men against women, like compared to just to show the spread, like how many places have, men are the boys are not that many of them. It doesn't, at the worst point is 30%. But the women are way higher. It's like 75% for Indonesia, for example. So I think those two things compared to each other is more of like a poignant thing. Whereas the under 15, that's like pretty dramatic difference, or dramatic inequity.
Absolutely. Now I've just been told that my voice is really low, and I couldn't be closer to the mic. I'm gonna just try to switch off the automatic volume adjustment. So hopefully that's better now. If people could just confirm if the voice is now louder, that would be really helpful.
Or is it my voice? Am I the loud one? Maybe I'm just loud.
No, to me it both sounds the same. It's kind of like,
I know you sound totally normal to me too.
Inside voices, and I don't know if it's a Zoom setting or what, but anyway, I've adjusted it. So okay, so I think we've got some feedback there for Priyanka, and I suggest we move on to the next one, and that is by Christoph Binik. Let me just, okay, so okay. Now, I saw a lot of maps this week, and the challenge is that not every country is included, and especially if people use a whole world map, it's incomplete, and it kind of makes it a bit difficult. So I'm curious to see how his map works out. Child marriage is too common. Females and males married by 18 in Africa. Well, I would say by the age of 18, because if you're married by, I would almost expect the next word to be a person, like married by a pastor or something. So the subtitle sounds a bit odd to me. There's a typo in the first line. It should be defined, not defined. There's formal marriage. Formal.
So visually with this scatter plot, I think I like the Viz and tooltip there because it gives you that quick view, but it's kind of redundant on what the matrix of the graph is telling you, which it gives you that sort of male versus female view. And the problem with orienting it like this is that a lot gets lost because you have this like high degree. I mean, I guess it does tell you one thing, that there's just not that many boys getting married early, but there's like a wide array of girls, you know, because it's flattened like that. But I feel like the white space between the text above and the cluster of things in the bottom, it's like a pretty important piece of real estate, and it's really not serving a purpose, I think, because like even that axis goes way above, you know, what I guess that's to try to keep it, you know, consistent 80 and 80, but I don't know if there's a way to deal with that or to flip it or to.
Yeah, I wonder how it would look if it was flipped, because then currently the whites or the empty spaces to me looks like it's the focus and that's about the men. Whereas if it was flipped, the females would, you know, it would kind of cluster on the left pretty highly, and then the right space would be blank, but it would focus more on the high percentage rather than currently it looks like there's a low percentage of something, because it's not explained. Like the chart is not explained, so people, unless they know how to read the scatter plot and they read the axes and they make the conclusions of, oh, this is comparing, you know, females versus males at the same age or in the same age bracket, people won't make the conclusion that, oh, it's so many more women than men per country. It also doesn't say that each dot is a country, so I think that needs a bit of definitions or explanations here.
But I think if you transpose the axes, I think that would like tell the story much more effectively, because it would focus your eyes going to go right from the letters right down the scatter plot, and then you'll orient to the left to figure out, oh my God, this is what percentage of girls are married by the time they're 18. Oh, and then my eye falls down to the empty space below, and it's like, oh, there's just not that many men. So I see a difference between, you know, a gender disparity.
Absolutely. And then what do you think of the map, given that it doesn't include all the countries?
You know, I was just thinking, I don't think it does a ton for me. Like I'm not sure of the value of it. I almost think that taking it out and just having the scatter plot is like maybe more effective, because, you know, it doesn't really do much, right? I mean, in my opinion.
And I mean, I've just read through the paragraph, and, you know, the information isn't wrong, but to me, it doesn't have the impact that it could have, because the point that the negative impact of early pregnancy, social isolation, interrupting schooling, limiting opportunities for career and vocational advancement, like, that's a big deal. And it's almost like a side note, because it's not highlighted in any way, and the map doesn't really show me that. It doesn't really, I don't really find that helpful. I think finding a different way to visualize this negative impact in the wording, but also maybe, I don't know, maybe there could be a quote of some sort that actually shows that more effectively.
Yeah, and just seeing a comment from Dimitri here about child marriage being, you know, an indicator sort of for child rape, or where child rape is accepted. It's another phrase. Child marriage is kind of a nicer way to say that. Yeah, you know, like I've always kind of felt like that. It's, you know, in the United States, for example, it would be considered statutory rape, is what the charge would be. And it's certainly, I feel like child marriage as a phrase is just not, it's like really unfair to marriage, you know, because these are girls. Like they do not have like the autonomy or the maturity to decide to get married. So they're not really getting married on their choice. They're being forced into it. And I really can't say whether it's culturally accepted or, you know, I can't really speak to that. I know that it's complicated, okay, because some of this stuff has to do with how families are able to feed their other children. And so in general, even if in our cultural context, we think of it as rape, the feedback I've gotten from colleagues in the field who devote their lives to working on this is that that's not a really helpful characterization. It doesn't help to affect the cultural drivers that end up with these girls being married off. And it is very complicated. There's reasons why it happens. You know, like families can't feed their children, and by marrying a daughter, they get resources for their family, and they lose a mouth to feed, if you will. And I realize that might be like kind of a callous way to consider it in a cultural context from our side, but this is the reality in some of these places. So I think really trying to be sensitive to some of the cultural things that drive this, and with the intent of trying to end it. I think you have to be careful how you characterize it. So maybe that would be my guess of why the sector has like allowed it to have this name. But yeah, it's a very violent thing with a very like friendly name. So I'm sorry, I know that we're not really Viz review, but a little extra context for everybody.
I think it's definitely important to mention those things, and it's I want to kind of say it's easy for us, in Western countries to kind of throw stones or be judgmental about this and not knowing the full background. And I think it also shows how interconnected everything is. It is about education. It is about availability of contraceptives, because I'm sure that some of these families that have many children and then so many mouths to feed that they maybe can't afford at some point, they didn't necessarily want all those children, but without the availability of contraceptives, it's not so much in their control. And education comes into it as well, and that circle or cycle just needs to be broken in some way, but in a way that, like you say, works in their cultural context and that makes sense for them.
Absolutely. I mean, and you would be like really shocked at what you see in the field where a woman in her early 20s has 5 kids. I mean, that it is like shocks you, to see, because it just, this kind of thing doesn't happen in our world. But yeah, it's a complicated problem in a complicated, cultural context.
Definitely.
It's complicated also because we don't have that basis in it.
Yeah. So the next person who tried to capture this topic is Gafar, and I'm pretty sure he is online because he typically is. Together we can put an end to child marriage. And there's a bit of an intro about October 11th. Oh, maybe that is also something we can do a shout out for. I guess we'll need to make people follow you guys on Twitter and to get all the updates around initiatives around International Day of the Girl. Is that?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be active on that on Twitter, and maybe even with some of our partners who we're going to share all of this volunteer work with to kind of raise the topic and get the word out. So yeah.
Great. Okay, that sounds good. So we have this Viz, and the first thing I notice is the color legend, but I only see blue, orange, and pink in the the first page that's currently on my screen. I don't quite know.
There's a little yellow down there.
There is, but I have to scroll.
Yeah.
And I don't see it at first. So it says percentage of women. I don't know what this percentage is, because below it is the percentage of women married before age 18, and on the right side is before age 15. Oh, but then what do the colors actually mean?
And why is like Central African Republic, Chad, or Bangladesh, Mali, Mozambique, Burkina, and South Sudan, they're all over 50. So why just that one, I wonder?
Yeah, should they all be pink? I don't understand. I don't understand why on the right side we don't have yellow. I think, so I do want to say, overall the design I think is beautiful. I'm just questioning the small things that pop up. And then there is a bit of a, like a comment in the middle, around 70,000 adolescent girls in low and middle income countries die during childbirth. And then we have, so we have each country, and again we're looking at women before age 18 and then before age 15, and now the color actually comes in. So maybe the color legend should move down, but also blue almost seems like a good color, like a positive color compared to the others. Still isn't though, because even 1% is too high, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure on the color choices. What do you think of so we've got a donate button at the bottom, and as someone who's obviously been in the sector for many years now, do you have a suggestion for people who want to include a call to action on their Viz and how to best do that?
Well, I think I do it. That's great. I think, what they tell us, the people who study this stuff, is that the button, like red. There's man, I'm gonna have to get back to you on exactly the right list, but it's like red or there's a different colors of buttons that are more effective to drive that. But obviously, it would have to work with your styling here. But yeah, I'm grateful that you did it, that you put it on there far, and I also really like the colors that are in here. But I agree with Eva. I think that bar, the legend, should be down by the country section because putting it up there next to the bar charts makes you just wonder why are the other things not colored in, you know?
Yeah.
And so you could you could still keep your colors there, raise attention the way you're doing it, but just put the legend below so people then get their color chart reframed for the next picture, for the next chart, I guess.
And one suggestion I want to make, because I notice it now, having gone through a couple of visits. So we had 3 different buckets, so to speak. We had the women who are now 20 to 24 who were married before 18, those who are 20 to 24 married before 15, and then men as well. Maybe that can be shortened in some way, or you just highlight in some way before age 18, because that's the really important bit. And I think because the description goes over 2 lines, it really gets lost that these young women, still young women, were married when they were still children. I think that it hasn't really popped out to me in any of the visits so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
Okay. But I think overall the design is really well done. Now we have Michelle Freeman, who is very consistent in participating and also always does a great job with these topics. Let me bring that into full screen mode. And I really like her take on this when, with the title Childhood's End. I'm just not sure if those basically 3 titles are competing for attention a bit, and which one to actually focus on. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I'm really grateful for the primetime brand placement, so thank you for that. And the Childhood's End really that was the thing I saw. I didn't really see the other ones, so but I do hear you. I think there's a lot there, so they all would compete for attention. But when I looked at this the first time, I thought, okay, she's looking at Central African Republic, so that's really clear. And then the point outs make it, just kind of shows you it's on the extreme of all of the different groups. Again, I still think that this putting the married by 15 in the middle, it really mutes a very, very extreme problem. And it also just, it's the same comment I had before. So it doesn't let you compare apples to apples visually. But I like when people take micro focus on a country or something specific, because it lets you just really focus your story. Like there's a story here about Central African Republic, and it's a very complicated country with a lot of incredible resources, particularly with old growth forests, where there's just been constantly strife there. And we've done some work in eastern Cameroon and southeastern Cameroon, and literally all day long there are huge trucks driving out old growth trees that have been chopped down that are literally like 2 meters in diameter, and they're massive, man. It's really, really sad. So sorry, this is completely an aside, but it's just like the last bit of old growth forest in Africa is just being like clear cut. So anyways, Central African Republic is a really tough place. There's a lot of problems in general, and I think it makes this viz makes a really good point about that. Like there's a lot, like kids they grow up fast, I guess, because they have to if they survive that long.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm staring at the viz, and I'm thinking about this dot plot. One suggestion I would make there is I like that the other countries are in there for context, but I would make those circles smaller so that Central African Republic really stands out. And then, if you can, making the circles for Central African Republic not transparent, so the colors pop more, and the others, can be kind of small into the side. But I think at the moment they get a bit lost because they're transparent and on a black background. But the bar chart further down really helps make it visible how much that is. And sometimes I wonder with percentages whether something like, in that country, more than 2/3 of women are married by the age of 15, and almost 1/3 of women are married even before they're 15. Like maybe something like that, or every, if you make it like every third woman, or, almost 7 out of 10 women. Something that people can relate to a bit more than a percentage. I don't know how you feel about those interpretations.
Yeah, I this is something that I was thinking throughout this whole data set, even when we first looked at this, is that, you have to remember that women or females married by the time they're 15 are a subset of females married by the time they're 18. And I'm pretty sure that these two figures are like the population of female in the country that are married by 18, right? So I think the 29, so I think if you had 100 females, 68 of them would have been married by the time they were 18. And 29 of that 68 would have been married by 15. Sorry, I've just said it the wrong way. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So then the actual, if I'm right about this, and we'd have to look in the notes a little closer, but it's not 29% of the total. It is 29% of the total, but it's like almost half of the ones who were married by the time they were 15.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's an even more compelling and shocking number.
Yeah.
And this is like what we did with our fistula stuff, is we're like 68% of the women were married, had babies as teenagers. And of those women, almost 2 out of 3 were within 3 years of their first period. So it's like, these are really young pregnancies. So I think that, I don't know if anybody's done this or if that's even the appropriate analysis, because I'd have to look again at the detail. But I think that's one of the things, every time we see one of these visits, that I'm thinking like, this population is the extreme of the upper bound, right? This is like the extreme of the females married by 18. These are the worst off. And yet we're comparing them directly to males, and it's like equal to the males married by. Mm-hmm. And it kind of nags me, I feel like it's not, the biggest part of the story is kind of, the lead is buried, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I don't really have that much for Michelle, but maybe just having a bit of a think about those 3 topics, like I said again, 3 titles, and how to make one of them stand out and the others maybe be more part of the story. And then maybe those circles, rethinking their size, and just how to bring to the forefront this females married by 15 a bit more. Okay, so then we have Julien. Based on the last name, I'm assuming some sort of French pronunciation of the first name, but hopefully he's able to watch this live or on demand. And when I put together this list, the first thing that stood out to me was the picture, and the people in this picture do not look like children. The woman does not look like a little girl. The man does not look like a little boy. So my first suggestion would be to actually just get rid of them completely, because they don't really add anything other than distracting me. And then we have a line connecting data that is not actually continuous. These are all different countries, and you can't connect them because the line would look very different if you just sorted alphabetically or something like that. I also don't quite understand. So the line is the women and the bars are the men, and I really don't understand why you would visualize it like that. It should be, because they're both people, I would visualize them as 2 bars next to each other. Because I think that actually the approach of using bars to compare is quite valid, because it shows how many more women. But here, how much more it affects women is lost. 76% versus 6%. is completely lost because the line is so thin and just has a dot rather than the actual bar to show how bad it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've nailed it. I mean, I don't have much to add here.
Yeah, and then I guess the other thing I would change is this italicized, very small text. I mean, I can see how small it actually is for everyone watching. Making that a bit larger, plus just using a quote to me always feels a bit lazy unless the quote is, you know, something brilliant. If it is a description of a topic, you could just use your own words to describe it rather than copying and pasting, and sticking some quote marks on it. So those are my suggestions there.
Do you know one thing? As you were talking, it reminded me like that I just wanted to bring up. These girls are not getting married to boys. They're not getting married to young boys. You know, in fact, in our fistula work, we've seen that, you know, of the teenage girls who are getting married, about 60% of them have husbands that are like 5 or more years older than them. Okay, so this is like 7 out of 10 basically are marrying substantially older guys, because for the guys to be able to marry the girls, they have to have resources. That's one of the reasons why the families agree to marry the girl off, because there's is oftentimes a bride price or some sort of dowry paid, which again is what complicates this, because it's a source of resources for a family that's really poor. And they have a daughter who gets married, they get several cows or they get some assets they can use to then feed their other children. And this is what from the field we know is one of the complicating factors. But just to contextualize this is not like two teenagers in love. This is like a young girl who's marrying an older guy who has money and resources.
Yeah. And you make a good point, because this title here on the chart says females and males married by 18. It does kind of suggest that it could be kind of consenting teenagers, which is not the case. And I'm sure that in some cases you might have a 14-year-old being married to a 50-year-old, which is just disgusting.
That absolutely. There's some really disturbing pictures from that you see of like these marriages of girls who are like, you know, 11 or even less, getting married to some guy with a gray beard.
That's like a lot of people have said, you know, the numbers shouldn't even exist. It shouldn't be a thing. But unfortunately it is, and hopefully with these visualizations we can help some of the organizations that are working to fight this to draw attention and to make the information accessible. Okay. So the next one is by Matty. Child marriage is all too common. Bit of a soft title, I think. Maybe I'm just feeling the rage, but it feels a bit mellow. It's all too common. I mean, the common cold is also very common. I guess that's what I'm thinking about. Like, there are a lot of things that are common and that maybe shouldn't be, but it feels a bit gentle.
I mean, the last Viz also said that it's like still common. It was like child marriage still common. One thing I like about this is we have the visually, you know, next to the females married by 18 and the males married by 18 are next to each other, you know, and so you can see like a majorly different kind of median and spread. I do think by having the under 15s still part of that chart, it dilutes the message of the under 15s, but I do like that there's, you know, you finally put the two, you know, apples to apples next to each other.
And it could be that the females married by 15 isn't actually a chart. It could be the big ass numbers. You know, it could be visualized in a different way that really hits home. And then below is, okay, but there are young people, even more so, who are still minors, who also get married to older people. But yeah, just drawing it out more, because like Seth said, it gets a bit lost, and it's really awful that it happens. Now here we have kind of like a half world map, and I find this one really difficult because it's got so many gaps because so many countries are not part of the data set that it's a bit hard to orient yourself. I mean, sure, we can see Africa, but it looks like it's then done into regions, and maybe instead of having so much space taken up by a map, you could instead have I think it's 5 regions, or however many. You could just have blocks with the names, with the color, and you just click on those. It could save you a lot of space, and that space you could use for a call to action, like a donate.
Yeah, I like that idea. Instead of a map, a set of buttons. It really makes it feel like a dashboard. Like you push a button and you see something happen. I think you'd have people use it more too, because it's not immediately clear unless you're like somebody who's familiar with Tableau that you can click those countries and it does anything.
And those buttons, I mean, I understand that, when you click on a region first and then you can hover over all the different countries. I would hazard the guess that most people, if they get the continent of Africa and they get all these countries without names, they probably, me included, wouldn't be able to correctly name a lot of them. For me, hovering over that map is not necessarily as effective as having just a breakdown. So, for example, let's say when you go with the buttons, you put the buttons near the top, and I can click on Africa as a region, or I can click on Asia. And then rather than having a single line for each of these, it breaks down into each individual country. Oh, that's not good. Tab Republic just broke on me. Let me just bring up the picture. It breaks down into individual rows for each country, so I can see the detail. That would be another suggestion there.
I mean, I think I can see that if you had the buttons instead of the regions to click on, that maybe said the region, and then you click the button and it broke out the region that had all the countries, there, and you made it a choropleth where it was shaded by severity of the issue.
Yeah.
It would draw the user to that specific thing, and then they could click on the country and have it highlighted on the charts above. I think that would be like a pretty useful way to do this, like where the button drove like a focused view of a regional area, and then you choropleth it down within that color set so that you could find where what country in that regions are worst off, and then that showed you where they lay on the line above. I think that would look super cool. I know that's probably a lot of complexity, but I think it would look really cool.
Okay, so Matthias, hopefully that's some suggestions for you. Next up we have Agatha, and I hope Tab Republic is back. And it looks like it is. Okay. So I'll zoom in a little bit for everyone else. Okay, so child marriage around the world. I love the big donate button. I think that is so prominent. One suggestion, I guess, around donate is some people might be like, okay, I want to help, but what am I donating for? Or who am I donating to? And it's nice to have a button that just has a big word on it. I don't necessarily know the solution to this, but I wonder how it could be so that people, okay, so I'm like, okay, child marriage is bad, I want to donate, but what am I doing here with my money? Would be
I think just stylistically, I think this is beautiful, and I think it's balanced, and the use of colors and white space is excellent. I mean, it's very, very, very pretty and poignant. And if you click the donate button, it takes you to Girls Not Brides, where they will tell you what they'll do with their money.
Okay.
And it's an advocacy organization and a partner organization of ours who's just really exceptional about raising the issue of child marriage around the world. So in my opinion, I think in a viz like this, you don't have to like get into exactly what the donation is going to be. It's so prominent that it's going to entice people to click it, and if they do, they're going to learn about a partner who can help them fulfill their intent in helping this issue.
Okay.
And I think it's really pretty and really prominent. So I think this is just really good work. It looks really nice.
I agree, and I really love how the hamburger button, if you click on that, you can actually then select a country. You don't have to hover, especially if the country is a bit small, it might be tricky to hover correctly, but you can just select it. Now, one suggestion I would make, because I do like the chart. What do they call them? Not waffle. I've forgotten. But the icon makes me more think of like a woman. I wonder if there's more of a childlike icon. If you use an icon, I wonder if there's a childlike one that would make it a bit more obvious that these are not grown women. I mean, I know it says girls, but just something to think about. And I really like how the text is laid out at the top, because it is a lot of text, but because we've got the 3 columns, it's much easier to digest. I don't want to, if this was just one long line, across, 5-6 lines, that would be really hard to read. But because it's broken up, it makes me much more likely to go through it in detail.
I like the font too. What font is that? Any idea?
I'm not sure. I could download.
Maybe Agata will tell us. I can see she's in the chat. And it's a pudding chart, by the way.
Pudding chart, yes, that's right. I don't quite understand why pudding. To me, it's more like a petri dish, but I'll go with pudding if that's what people call it.
It kind of looks like if you were looking down on a pudding jar, and you were, getting that last little bit.
I guess.
I don't know.
All right.
Good work, Agata. It's really nice viz.
Cool. Okay, and we will see if she can tell us what the font is, and we'll move on to
Montserrat. There we go.
Oh, nice. We'll check.
We'll keep that in mind when we're building viz. It looks really good.
Yeah. So the next one is by Monika Jaworska, and I'll zoom in. And the first thing I noticed here was the title. Duh, of course, but so if I read it out loud, as many as 76% of women are subjected to child marriage in some African countries. Now, I would move the African countries first, and I think at the moment, with it being at the end of the sentence, it kind of weakens the statement, because it's like as many as, so it's not quite 76%, and then it says in some African countries, which might kind of subconsciously make people think, oh, is it actually a big deal? But I think it sounds different if you say in some African countries, as many as, or up to, or 76% of women are subjected to child marriage. And then I know
I mean, this is also like, I think it's, I don't know, I think it's a little unfair to Africa, because this is also a very big problem in parts of Asia. And in some cases, it's like a huge problem there. So I think I'm a little defensive at picking on Africa, because there's some parts of Africa that are doing an exceptional job at this, and they don't have a problem with this. Whereas across the board in some of the parts of South Asia, it's really a problem. So I'm a little bit, like I said, defensive about that. But I will say I am happy that the women and men by 18 are compared to each other. You're right there. And I do get it that the clusters here, like the gray, are the other countries. So that's one of the things I was going to say, is like, how does it compare to other places? And I do see the spread is more. So, I get it. I get why it's done. But yeah, the only thing I would say critically is like the breaks on the labels, with the D and the next line, I think is, try to fix that. I don't know if that's showing up for you too.
It does. I don't know if it's a Tableau Public issue, because sometimes the alignment kind of goes a bit funky once you upload, but it's probably something that Monika can look into.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry if you hear shouting. My kids are just come from school.
That's okay. That's lockdown life, right? It's nothing compared to my nephews, where the word inside voices doesn't exist, actually. So
they get a little pumped up.
Oh God, yes. And then there's shouts of yoga, yoga, yoga. So I have to do a yoga session with them, and it doesn't calm them down, unfortunately. Okay. Sorry, back to a serious topic. I forgot who did this. I just scrolled past it. Preeti. Okay. So when I picked this to add it to the list, I noticed that it has quite a lot of different elements that grab my attention, that compete for my attention. So we've got the title, which is nice and big. Then we have a big number, and I like that statement at the top. Nearly 6 times more girls than boys are married before the age of 18. Now, I'm not sure if you can, and again, I haven't looked at the numbers in detail, but I'm not sure if you can say that across the board, across all these countries, but you might have done the numbers. And then we've got those big blocks of education, poverty, violence, and health. I didn't know. And then we've got the boxes below it, and that just kind of looks a bit clunky, but it also really grabs my attention when there's also then the map, and there's more, then there's also more, kind of blocks, and then comes the actual data viz, and then take action at the very bottom. I'm not sure how you felt about the different elements of this viz.
I think it's a little too crowded for me. There's not enough white space, and I feel a little bit like distracted by all the different stuff on there. I feel like my eyes are jumping all over the place. And I think something about the map being like a satellite view, it makes me focus on the map rather than the countries, better than the choropleth. It just, I don't know. I think it's something about that additional detail that just really is like attractive to my eye. I do like this. This, I don't know what kind of chart this is, but with the is it a barbell chart? Okay, that makes sense more than a pudding chart for sure. I do like this. I think that's kind of an interesting way to look at this, because you do see that spread, and in every case, it's there's the boys are getting married, or fewer boys are getting married earlier than girls. Mm-hmm. But I almost feel like that's the coolest thing here, and I think like there's a lot of other stuff before you get to that. So maybe if there's a way to simplify it, that'd be great. But I do want to say thank you for putting a take action and linking to the Viz 5 page. That's awesome.
Yes, and I just had a thought where the stuff at the top is important, but I think the Viz, the barbell chart, is really cool because you can sort by different, parameters. So you can say, well, I want to sort by the biggest difference between men and women, or males and females. I want to sort by country alphabetically, and then, high to low, low to high. So that's really cool because it gives me the control of, I'm looking for a specific country, which is much easier to find in an alphabetical list, or I want to look at how big is the issue for females, for males, or how big is the difference. So that's really good. I do like those elements where, you have education, like the different types of impact on a woman's life or on a girl's life, as well as the big numbers. I think that's really cool. It takes a lot of time for me to go through the viz. I would also remove the zoom controls from the map because it's a bit painful. But before I actually get to the data itself, and I think I would swap a few things, just swapping them around to make it a bit more of a story. Okay, now let's see, just in the interest of time, to make sure we get through a couple more. I was really blown away by how many visualizations we had this week, just for Viz Review, let alone the total of the submissions for this week. So
yeah, I feel like the engagement keeps growing, and we've been talking with Tableau Public about trying to figure out, like how many people are posting stuff. But we still haven't figured out how to do that yet. So if anybody knows how to like figure out how many people on Tableau Public are accessing a data set, we'd love to know that.
I think what's important is, so this is maybe a little tip. If you name your file before you upload it, #Makeover Monday, #Viz5 something, then those tags are automatically added when you upload it. But also in the description, you can add tags. So if you add the #Viz5, that gives us a very quick way to at least get the data from Tableau Public for Viz5. Because what we can only see on Makeover Monday is the downloads for a data set and the submissions that are entered into our tracker manually. But this would give you, and that might include people that don't use Tableau, but for the ones who use Tableau, using the hashtag Viz5 in your description, so it comes as a hashtag, kind of like we had one previously. Let me quickly jump. I think it might have been Monica or Agatas, where the hashtag was included, and it just makes, it was not Monica. It was not there. Okay, let me try one more. Matthias, maybe, because I'm pretty sure somebody included the hashtag. Also not Matthias. Then it must have been Julia. I'm pretty sure it was him. Here we go. So there we can click on the hashtag, and then on Tableau Public there are the different visits created. So if people want to consistently use that, that will help us a lot. Okay, let's get back to our list of vises. And oh yeah, so I had brought up the one by Alicia, and maybe we'll just quickly skim through, because we've talked about maps and about this kind of, I mean, the background map is beautiful, but it's distracting because we see the detail. We're like, oh yeah, I've walked in these mountains, and it makes you kind of go away from the actual purpose of the map, which is to show the countries and how affected they are. And then I think we've discussed at length now how, you know, the females married by 18 and males married by 18 should be together. So that's the feedback there. What do you think of the color in terms of using purple throughout the viz?
Oh, I think it's fine. I mean, I think it would be more poignant if you took away, like, you know, the map detail and the borders on the circles in the dot plot. I think they make it a little too dark and bring too much attention. I think that color on its own is really good. Yeah. I think some of the fonts are too small, and like on the, you know, on the written parts, the bolding, it doesn't feel like it has this is super picky formatting stuff, but the bolding doesn't feel like it has a real, like, clear purpose. And I'm very distracted by the title, by the spread of the text in the title. Mm-hmm. I would, particularly next to a sans serif logo that's at that scale, I think it'd be better to use the, oh, well, maybe it's just my computer, because it looks like it's loading sans serif on yours. On my computer, it's got a, you know, it's like a Times Roman kind of thing. I don't know why either, by the way.
Well, so I think it could be that what I see is what Alicia actually used, because if she's on, oh, actually, I'm using it on a, well, so it could, whatever's installed on your computer, if she has used the font that you have, it will display fine. Otherwise, Tableau uses an alternative font.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on my good computer. I'm looking at this on my good computer.
Yeah.
That is up to date. So I don't know, and I'm on Chrome, so I don't know what's going on, but maybe I need to restart my computer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks better on the YouTube. I can see.
I think just the consistency of fonts was important. Okay, and then so the next one, I got quite confused because I saw this and I thought, did someone really use a radial bar chart, and why? So here it is, and I'll make it large. And it says child marriage, females married before 18 around the world. And what is it? I need to make a lot of effort to understand. I don't have any idea what the sort order is. I don't think there is one, because it's not alphabetical, it's not by region, it's not by percentage. I would question what this does.
It's interesting because when I looked at this first, I think of like this radial chart, the way it's framed is it almost looks like a star, you know, where it has a positive connotation for a negative topic. And I don't mind like something super minimal like this because it forces the user to like engage with the viz. But maybe there's something you can do to leave that detail out, but then there's some visit tooltip or something that expands on this, this form that you have. Because the other thing is, it's not necessarily positive. It could be like almost like a sea urchin, which is kind of dangerous. And in general, I think something like this could be effective if you have something that just has no guidance whatsoever and that forces somebody to like look into it. Or you play it as an eye and take away even the logo out of the middle and make it look like an eye. I mean, Helen's saying it looks like an eye, and I think that's true. Maybe I don't know. I just something different. I probably am violating all principles of of like visualizations, but I do think it's sometimes intriguing to like set up something where you have to engage to have any to get anything out of it.
Yeah, I think we might have to disagree on that one just because of the topic. If this week's topic was around maximum internet speed in different boroughs of London, I don't mind. But we have a topic that's so important and where people have the opportunity to make an impact. But if I see this as just a static image, which is what most people will see on Twitter, they have no idea what is going on, what it tells them. There's zero insights. There is no explanations whatsoever. So the data is also not from data.world. The data is from UNICEF. So it just feels a bit like fine to experiment, but maybe this is not the right way to go about it for a topic where your viz could actually open someone's eyes, but here they just see a star kind of thing. So, yeah,
but I mean, like stylistically, imagine if you did play this off as an eye and it was like a girl's eye with a tear or something. Like, I don't know. I just feel like there's things you could do artistically with something like this. But yeah, I defer to your expertise for sure.
I'm totally fine with minimalistic design. I think at the very least, it would be important to add something like each line is a country. I mean, you could make this a bit, fancy of an explanation, but each line is a country. The length of the line indicates the severity of the problem. And I don't know, just something that explains what the chart actually shows, because even if I hover, it says in Central African Republic 67.9% females should be of females are married by 18. Okay, like there's no call to action. There's just I just think it overpromises and underdelivers, because it promises me to tell me about child marriage, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I get you there. I do.
Okay.
I do.
I'll come off my soapbox now and go to the next viz. And this one, I think Andy commented on this, because it's a tile map for the whole world, but it has multiple dots for a single country. So I'm not quite sure how that works. So I think, if we go Mexico, we have how many? I just typically in a tile map, a single tile is a single country. So but I'm keen to hear what you think of this, Viz.
Yeah, I don't think it works the way it's done here. But also the thing that really kind of doesn't work for me is the reds don't match. You have like something that's more of a brick red versus the SDG red. And not that they have to, but there has to be a coordination of it. They're too close, but don't match. Also, the girls in dark and the not in, sort of like dark gray. I don't understand the color difference. I just think the colors here are distracting to me.
Yeah.
And if I got to the point where I started looking at the bubbles, I would be not understanding why there's 10 bubbles from Mexico, sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the impactful numbers are great, but they don't have an impact because they're just buried in the text. So where it says each year 12 million girls are married before the age of 18, that number could be really, really big and be a real focal point of the viz. And I also think that I don't know if this stuff at the bottom is a quote. That's something that I typically dig into at the end of the week for the favorites, because if people just copy and paste and don't actually quote, that's basically an automatic exclusion from favorites, because I think at this point, we're all at a level where we know how to quote, or people should know how to quote. So if you copy text from somewhere else, I don't have an issue with it, but make it a quote. If you don't want to have a quote, then just use your own words to describe it as well. Okay, let's see what else we have. Oh yeah, Suzanne Foley. So I think the key point here was that we already talked about, females married by 15 and then having the by 18s together. I like that this is shortened to just females married by or males married by, rather than the whole long description. What I don't quite understand is the horizontal spread of these circles. Like, they go really far, they go further than that blue line or the orange line. So I'd maybe make the colored line go across the entire width of that column, so that it's more of a container or something like that.
I think it's an interesting way to show it, where you have basically 3 columns, and then you have these comments on each, and you have the only thing I would say is I would make the females and the males section colored in the same family of colors, like 2 shades of orange or 2 shades of purple or whatever, and then have the married by 15 different. I still think that just stands out as a story on its own. But I think this is kind of an interesting way to show it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a neat design. The one thing I would update is the footer. The footer looks really out of place. It looks a bit stuck on because the font is larger and then there's this white background. So I would just blend that into the background more and make the font smaller.
That's good. That's good advice.
Okay. How much time do we have left?
And maybe center justify it.
Yeah. I've got about 5 minutes. Now, the next one I wanted to look at, because it looks very business dashboardy, and I think it could just use a couple of smaller tweaks, because, well, firstly, rotating it, because I'll first to admit, I don't read things that are not horizontal. I don't want to tilt my head to read through all these country names and labels. So how can you make this more user friendly? And then it just makes me think of a business dashboard, and that I think it doesn't really, because it says need public awareness campaigns mainly in Africa on child marriage. I mean, is that, I don't know, are you the expert on that? Because I don't know if it's about public awareness campaigns or whether there's very many other things. But I think it just needs a bit of tidying up, because it's very cluttered and it doesn't really have a clear message. And the Viz 5 logo is super tiny in the top right corner. It looks like it's taken up a lot of horizontal space, but it's not really balanced.
Yeah, one thing I do like about this is the split out of the 15 under 15s, and then the like for like comparison with the under 18s. And the fact that there's continuity, or almost continuity, there's a little bit of disparity between the lines about each of these regions. So you can kind of pop around the different places, and there's been call outs at some of the exceptional numbers with a little extra explanation. It's a different way of doing it, and maybe it looks more like a businessy thing, but I think it's it's a quick way to get a lot of information, particularly if you already know some of the context. There is nothing written about the context, but I think it's actually it's kind of a useful viz from my perspective.
And maybe something that would make it look a little simpler is to just have the different regions as a filter, so you see kind of one region at a time, because it's not that easy to compare them anyway. But that way you have a bit more space for everything, and you don't get overwhelmed with all the detail at once.
Yeah, that's true. And I kind of, you don't see, at least I haven't seen things that are oriented long horizontally. They're always long vertically.
Mm-hmm.
So it lets me have a picture, like a snap. I can look at each region at a time,
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool.
Cool. Okay. And then we have sign up. There is no link. Let me just click. Okay, it looks like there isn't a link. So if you just click on the far right picture or the third picture and then collection, okay, it's a bit hard to review really. I can just, like, my overall impression is it looks great, but I can't read any of the detail. And yeah, there is no link that I can see. But your first impression, if you just look at it from a picture.
I'm trying to make sure I have the right. So no, I'm not. I haven't seen this one because it wouldn't open. So let me go back, and it's kind of hard for me to see it on my screen. So hang on a second. Sorry, I had the next one loaded up.
Oh.
In general, like, I like the color of it. It's a pity we can't see the viz.
Yeah. So maybe Zainab can post a link.
I really like the subtitle. It is really a violation of fundamental human rights.
Yeah.
That's better than a common, all too common or whatever it was before.
Definitely, because it shows that, it makes people think.
Yeah, and this gradient of gray, I don't know what the background color is, but it's maybe like a blue, I don't know, is it a dark bluish? Somehow I think the gradient there, it's especially the darkest of them doesn't work. Like the plus 50%, I think I would find some way to change that. I get it. I like the muted hues. I think it has this it stands out sometimes. Less is more. But I think that black is completely lost. And I think that's the place where you really want to get the attention.
Absolutely. And it's always a bit more difficult working with a dark background. So just stepping back and seeing whether you can still see clearly even the dark colors is a helpful exercise.
And then weirdly, like the Mapbox OpenStreetMaps, thing that comes in with these maps, we call it really gets the attention because of the contrast and the positioning, because you're going from the map to the next place is to the cluster of words. And when you see that Mapbox thing there, I think that's super super distracting. So I don't know if there's a way to
So what I do, because you can't remove it, but I just tend to take a rectangle that's the same color as the background and stick it on top of that location, and then it's gone.
Yeah, another way to do it is to just move the text, because I would never go to the Mapbox thing automatically. I would go to the text, but because the text is co-located with the Mapbox stuff, it draws your eyes to the Mapbox stuff first, and you think it's like a button or something, So, and that just might be the screenshot.
Yeah.
But I, in general, like the look and feel. I think it's like I like the styling of it.
Definitely, and with so many of these vizzes, I think, this would make a cool poster.
Right? Yeah, definitely.
So so well done. Now I'm conscious of time. We've got about 2 minutes left because you have to go.
Yes.
So if you don't mind,
Sorry.
I'm going to bring our faces back. How do I do that? I do it this way, so that, here we go, so that everyone can just see us. So we say goodbye. I know we didn't get through as many visits as people probably would like because we never have enough time, but I think especially for the Visit 5 topics, it's really important that we provide the context as well. And when I say we, it's really Seth, of how is this information being used and how are these topics talked about and all of that. So thank you, Seth, for joining and helping us figure things out.
Well, it's always a pleasure. And again, I just can't say thank you enough to all the volunteers who put their time and energy and insight into this super important topic. And just so everyone knows, we're going to take all of this work, the work that's been shared here, and also the stuff that's on Twitter, and we're going to go and talk with the people at Girls Not Brides to show them what has been done here, and talk about what maybe we can do together to take this a little bit deeper. Just thanks everyone for continuing to make this initiative such a success in terms of engagement and broadening that engagement with all the great and unique insights that people bring to the work. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Absolutely. I also want to say thanks to everyone who's participating this week, and keep the work coming. I will put together some lessons learned at the end of this week, so stay tuned for that. And then, of course, next week we have our Makeover Monday live on Monday, leading up to the Tableau conference. So, yeah, I've got nothing else to say right now, but say thanks for making the time, and have a good rest of the day. And everyone else on there, of course, also enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much. See you guys next time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.